Good morning, Denise Dryden here, doing my weekly Sunday morning video, and today is Independence Day, so it's a nice topic to talk about, like how do we create independence and even stretch it a bit to multidimensional independence. And so the sort of impetus for wanting to do this today is that there's lots of changes going on, whether they're changes within ourselves, changes within our community, changes in our work schedule, in our relationship, and knowing that we can be independent and move through those means that we have to look at where we have created dependence, right? So, when we go to the root word, whether it's independent is also the process of being less dependent, right? So when you're less dependent, and when that could be on country, on owner, when we look at the ability for the United States to break away from England, you're going to hear trains in the background because they're running today. It's sort of an interesting sound, so we'll see how that goes. They're all hooked together, so they're dependent on one another, right? So independence is about breaking away from an owner or a country. We have slavery where they create or we allow however that decision was made, or there's a break in the dependence. It's also the ability to live life without being helped or influenced by others. And so that comes up a lot when we're talking about teenagers and young adults and codependency in relationships, within our marriages, within a lot of different places. So it's, basically to be independent is to not be dependent upon. So dependence can be legal. It can be determined. Like you're not allowed to give your child full independence until they're 18, right? It can be influenced, like power, whether it's your boss, whether it's the power you give over to a parent or a spouse. It's when there's control by somebody else. It's when you rely on that other person, that other system, that other something for aid, for support. And it can even be dependence on insulin, a prescription drug, a dependence on a treatment where you don't have any freedom from moving away from that dependent structure. So what we're really looking at is the parameters and the terms of what we actually need in order to create independence for ourselves, right? So, we know that it's a lack of freedom, because the tighter your reliance is, whether it's support on money from your parents, whether it is the payments you have to make on a house, whether it is the body system, your bodily system needing an influx of a drug that the pharmaceutical companies keep driving the prices up, like insulin right now. When we have this level of dependence, there's a restricted range of freedom. It means that we can't go very far away from where the source of our support and help is. And, we don't really get that until we get it. And so being able to move up above that and say, like, how many forms am I actually dependent upon? How many people, places, and things do I have a very constricted or very determined relationship with, where I can't break that unless I have to start all over, and this way of thinking, right, and how we do this. So we have children that are dependent on us. We have a college system that extends the parental control or parental assistance until 21, 22, and then we have young adults who are still looking at how do they run their own house, how do they make their own food, how do they make money to support themselves. And there's been this decades long, probably 2 to 3 decades of parental codependence with their children. And some, can peel off and break away really early and go take off for their own life. This is the tarot card that I thought I would show you for today, which is the Fool. I love the Fool. The Fool is the 0 of the major arcana. There are 21 major arcana plus the Fool. The Fool knows every single one of the life challenges and stages of the major arcana. And so there's nothing that he or she is afraid of, nothing that they're worried about. They've seen the entire path. They know that if they come to a fork in the road, they go right, there's a life there. They go left, there's a life there. There isn't a right or a wrong decision. There's just how you handle it. And so what I love about all of the images of the Fool is that he can fall off the edge of a cliff because he knows wherever he lands, he's going to be okay. So the Fool is sort of like the theme for how to create this multi-dimensional independence, right? Because some can break away early, and some break away late, and some never break away from these dependents. They move from family to relationship to house and mortgage and job, and so that there's this reliance on stability. And so as we know, there's that trade-off. When you're supported and helped, there are also rules that come with that, which is, if we're going to do marriage, we are in a committed relationship, and you and I are going to do this together. You may have some freedoms of your own. We may collectively or collaboratively choose which freedoms we don't want within this relationship. So the trade-off, man, for someone to support us, to protect us, there are rules. There are rules in marriage. There are rules in banks. There's rules on loans. There's with your credit cards. There's rules in your job on non-compete. There's rules with children. If I will pay for this if you stay in college. So these rules end up impacting this level of independence. Where's that break line, right? Where is it? And so what if we changed the view? What if we really shifted it around, like, how do I live my life as if no one is here to save me? That there's no safety net. There's no mom and dad you can call to bail you out financially. There's no soft landing place should you decide. There's no safety net. So, whether it's no parent, no partner, no country, no leader, even no God, that nothing is going to save you. It's only you. You are navigating through the world. And that's what I love about this Fool, is that, he's independent and he's connected to everything, right? So it isn't, I'm walking away. And I went through the Sacred Rebels cards, and I loved this one, which is going beyond the normal, allowing other things to present themselves, right? Or my favorite is releasing allegiances, right? Releasing those things that no longer work for you. So on this level of independence, how do we embrace it? How do we trust it? And how do we own this on all levels? It's one thing to say sort of like, I'm independent, I live in my own house. So when we go from the physical, then we independence on our mental thoughts and our thinking, independence on our feelings, in trusting ourselves, in faith in the process, right? So then from using the elements, using all four of these, how are you creating independence within your system? And then go even to a higher perspective, which is how do you see your life from so many different dimensions? I love the fact that the Fool is up on this high peak, so he can see many, many things. And we're going to talk about that in our tips, right? So I have this list of tips that I always provide for us when we're doing this, because it doesn't, it's nice to talk about concept, but then it's like, how do you bring this home? How do you drive this in? So multidimensional is the ability to access things from all views, all perspectives, all levels, angles, and to move it within from an expanded perspective, which is, this is what I see in front of me, but I know that there's something else. This is a little town. I know how the population is. I know what the patterns are. How do I get out and look at how many people come into this town with international, global influences? How many people come in and bring language and faiths and perspectives? It's just so much fun, right? So when we lift above this 3D and we start seeing and feeling and exploring more than what's right in front of us, we're using multidimensional skills to create a stronger sense of independence, a stronger sense of sovereignty, right? So what we're really looking at is learning how to become the Fool, the master, right? So here are the tips. I've got 5 of them for you today. So hold on to the end, and we'll go through them. So the first one is to play out a scenario. Think of something that you hang around with in your head all the time. You know, I'm a coach. I've been independent of any outside financial support for the last 10 years running my own business. So it's kind of like I have X amount of clients and they pay me X amount of dollars and it equals this, right? And you know, there are times when I go, I have to keep track of that number. I have to keep track of that number. If it goes up, this means this. If it goes down, this means this. And it's sort of like that linear, constant thinking. Or my favorite is some of the families that I coach is like junior, kid, teen, child, right? Whatever term we want to put in there. If my child doesn't get their GPA up, then that limits the colleges that they can go to. And, you know, they think of things like status of colleges that they apply to, statuses of acceptance, you know, possibilities, where they're going to go, what they can do. And it's like this linear line, and everything's just sort of dependent. We're driving it into, this is what we're trying to create, this is what we're trying to control, right? So play it out. Look at the routes. You know, this is what I'm doing, and it goes this way, this way, this way, this way. This is, and think about the child. It needs to go this way, this way, this way, this way. So we start to look at it from the perspective of routes, from the perspective of some of these roads, right? Like, this is the one I'm holding on to. This is the one I'm adhering to. And it has limitations, and it has assumptions around it, right? So that's the first thing, is play something out. Really get a good grasp of it. Second thing is raise yourself to a higher perspective, from like the eagle, the airplane, that, you know, on top of the mountain, right? And see the roads like a map. And you realize, okay, so here's the main road, here's the highway. Everybody who's going south always gets on that highway and goes straight. Yeah, it's faster, it's a little boring. There's supplies and systems along the way that help you. However, there are so many other little tiny roads that come in and intersect, and forks that go out, and some that parallel and intersect down the road at a later time, and some that go off in a completely different direction. So start to see life as a series of roads that intersect or divert. Because the beauty of the Fool is that it doesn't matter where you go. There's adventure, there's experience, there's life in that direction. And it's not good or bad or right or wrong. Number 3, the multidimensional independence is that we start to prepare ourselves and train and pack for the unknown, which is, I already know how to drive down I-5 if I'm going south from Washington, Oregon, California, you know, down to Mexico, right? That's a main highway. I know what to do to be prepared for that. But how do you prepare for the unknown? How do you prepare for taking back roads? How do you prepare for not being able to find a place to sleep? How do you prepare for eating foods or having foods presented to you that you don't enjoy? Or that you can't eat? So what skills are needed for you to be flexible, adaptive? You know, what can you do around these things that don't go with you, that don't fit? What can you do to adapt yourself or to adapt your choices into a bigger perspective? It's kind of like, yeah, I thought I was going this way, then I took a sudden turn and boom, now I have what I need to be prepared. And I know I'm talking big here, but think very specifically. Do you know how to cook? Do you know how to change a flat tire? Do you know how to have money in different places? Do you know how to be flexible, right? So that's the point of it. Number 4 is to deepen your independent skills. So you teach your children. You teach your children how to have their own banking, how to have their own systems of support, how to have people that they can call when they need to know, hey, am I okay when I'm way out here in La La Land having an adventure in a little town in Montana where I just left a big suburban area, right? You know, like, know who you can call. So when you're responsive, when you're problem solving, when you're flexible, you break the forms of control. And those people who are highly in control don't like it. It's kind of fun. They don't like it when you're independent. They don't like it when you're sovereign. They don't like it when you can just go, well, I don't have a lot vested here, so I can pack it up and move. Whether it's you pick up your money from one bank to another and you diversify it into several. Whether you pick up your stuff and you put your main things in storage and you move from there. Whether you pick up from a relationship and say, I have loved you for 16 years. Now it's time for me to go find another way to be seen and loved. We're not talking about slashing and breaking environments. What we're talking about is being independent and saying, I can't breathe. I'm not growing in this situation. And number 5 is to be with and to be separate. So when we're talking about independence, we are not talking about shutting down our relationships. We are not talking about being disconnected. It's just noisy out here today. What we are talking about is being loving and connected to yourself first and to others on various levels. It's one thing to say, I'm leaving a community. I can't believe that I'm not supporting community anymore. Well, actually, I'll use the example of myself. I build little communities wherever I go. So the sense of community is one of my top values and one of my top priorities. But it doesn't mean that I stay in one, because staying means longevity or commitment. It means that I'm here and I'm present to it for right now, right? So we have lots of choices. And as the world changes around us, what we found out with this pandemic and with all this lockdown crap that's been going on is that we have found new ways to be in relationship, new ways to support ourselves, new ways to see life. And we've looked at breaking away from old houses that we used to live in and moving to new areas. We've looked at freeing our children from the college track. We've looked at so many things. So we really are like beginning to understand the beauty of hopping from lily pad to lily pad, or from road to road, and being absolutely open to whatever wants to happen. So this is what I'm going to invite you to do from this year forward, from this Independence Day forward, is build your own independence, build your own sovereignty, and look at how do you have flexibility and release yourself from some of the constrictions that you put on yourself before. All right? Have a great Independence Day. Have a great week, and I'll see you next Sunday. Take care. Bye-bye.